Hello, Garland Nixon here, fresh off of my fun day on the Mother of All Talk show. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, fresh off a fun day. I was hanging out on Moats today, and I had a good old time with Dr. Jack Rasmus and Matt Weinglass, our dear friend here on this channel. Before we get going, let's ask Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew, what did you think of the show today? Prince Andrew didn't like the show for some reason. All right, all right, all right. Let's get going. All right. So what's happening here? Okay. If you've been paying any attention to what's been going on the battlefield in Ukraine, how can I put this? Things ain't going so skippy. I got paperwork over here. I got things I'm working on. For God's sake, I'll have my secrets here. My secret formula. I don't want you guys to get my secret formula. You'll shave it. You'll share it with someone. Perhaps Pfizer. At any rate, so. Oh, thanks, Jerry. Jerry said I was awesome on modes. I had a few holes in my swing here and there. But as you can tell, above all, when I go on modes, when I'm fortunate enough to host, stand in for George Galloway, the one thing I try to do is have fun. That's all. I don't know if I'm going to screw it up, but I have a lot of fun doing that and have fun guests and it's great talking to the people. Although I will say it's a struggle sometimes to hear some of the callers. At any rate, let's move on. So what's happening here? For I don't know how long, there has been certainly the appearance that the EU leaders are irrational and want war with Russia, that they want war with Russia. What's interesting is Dr. Jack Rasmus said today that he felt that all the bluster about war with Russia and fighting with Russia was really a fraud because basically their economies are collapsing. They want to be able to pump money into the, excuse me, yawning. Oh, sorry about that, man. They want to be able to pump money into the European economies via what has been called military Keynesianism. Based on the economic theories of John Maynard Keynes, the government puts money into, puts money into the economy, and it is good for the economy, and it can strengthen the economy. It can be positive. So military Keynesianism being you put money into the military-industrial complex, and it benefits the economy as a whole. But there's some really serious issues with that, and this is important stuff in the context of this conversation, simply because the other part of it is when you put money into an economy, does it have a magnifying effect, right? If I build roads, then people can have more roads, and I got to pay people to build roads, and people can drive and they can move goods and things like that. If I build homes, you have people that live there and they buy things for the homes and they're building the home basically, and the homes are there for a while. They appreciate in value, things of that nature. So if I put money into the economy in general, it can have a magnifying effect where if I put $100 in, it can have a value of $125 for the economy, and it continue to grow. Whereas if you build bombs, you can only do two things with them. You can store them somewhere, or you can drop them on somebody's pumpkin head and blow them to smithereens, right? But it has no magnifying effect on the economy. So military Keynesianism is the worst of all worlds when it comes to building your economy through government money, or appreciating your economy, growing your economy through government money, right? It actually has a detrimental effect on your economy when you do that. It is inherently inflationary to put money into the military-industrial complex for your economy. But apparently, according to Dr. Jack Rasmus, that's one of the reasons they're playing this long game with the Ukraine conflict, so that they can continue. What do I need this for? I don't have anybody. Let me take this off. I have nobody on here with me but you. All right, let me continue. Okay, so one of the things I think that's going on here is the Europeans are now, things are falling apart on the battlefield. The inevitable is starting to come to fruition. There are cauldrons being formed. There are Ukrainian units being smashed to pieces, surrounded, and additionally, Russia is pounding the infrastructure of Ukraine and making it very, very difficult for people to live because, let's face it, if you don't have electricity and water, it's kind of hard to have a normal life. So I think the major cities in Ukraine are being put out of commission. Now, there is some evidence that things are changing, that mindsets are changing. I'm going to go from the least to the most. Let's start with the least. We may even be able to disregard this, but I think it's worth reporting on. Here's an article: Zelensky ready for negotiations with Russia in any format. Now, okay, he's coming out saying, I want negotiations. Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky has said he's ready for negotiations with Russia, but only after a ceasefire along the current front lines. Well, let me see. Oh, sorry about that. I'm just yawning away. You're getting the crap beat out of you. You're constantly losing. Every day you're losing more and more towns. And the Russians are supposed to say, we're winning, we're winning. Oh, we'll stop right here. Well, that's not going to happen. And part of that is Vladimir Zelensky can't say anything that the Banderites don't want him to say. That guy's a walking contradiction, a Jewish Nazi, a Jewish representative of Banderites and Nazi sympathizers. How weird is that? But at any rate, it is what it is. God knows, look at the contradictions of the Zionists who were upset over supposedly Holocausts, right? Contradictions. At any rate, so he says, yes, I agree. If we want to stop this war and go to peace negotiations urgently and in a diplomatic way, we need to stay where we stay. Kiev should not surrender additional territory to Russia. Now, that's interesting. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you particularly why that's interesting. Let's look at a couple of other articles that will shed light. This is from, what do you know, The Telegraph, right? Ukraine cannot win against Russia, warns top British Army chief. Field Marshal Lord Richards tells the Independent Sam Colley that Ukraine has been given false hope by its Western allies and cannot triumph against Russia unless NATO forces join the fight. Now, that's interesting. It can't triumph against Russia even if NATO forces join the fight. And NATO forces would have to be the U.S. to have any chance, which still wouldn't have any fighting on Russia's border. As Barack Obama said, Russia has escalatory dominance on its border. You're going to go fight a superpower on its border, you are going to lose. But this guy couldn't come out and say that. Let's see what old Field Marshal Lord Richards says. And this is in the Telegraph, quite telling. Ukraine cannot win its war with Russia and should negotiate peace terms with the Kremlin, according to Britain's most senior army officer. Now, you could stop right there. That's all you need. That is the article. Now, you can ask yourself, why would this be in the Telegraph of all neocon places? This is the whole article. They need no more. Ukraine cannot win its war with Russia. That we've been saying since before the war started, and should negotiate peace terms with Kremlin, according to Britain's most senior army officer. And by negotiate, once you've lost a war, negotiating ain't pretty easy. I tell you what I'll do. If I'm Russia, I said, tell you what I'm do. I will accept your unconditional surrender. That's pretty much it. Field Marshal Lord Richards said Kiev will not be able to drive Vladimir Putin soldiers out of Ukraine without the help of NATO forces who won't get involved on the ground. You hear what he said? What he's saying? Now, they can't even with them, but he's still saying, you can't do it without us, and we ain't coming, brother. The cavalry ain't coming. Lord Richards was promoted to UK's military's most senior 5-star rank earlier this year and led NATO forces during their troop surge in Afghanistan, saying Ukraine's allies have failed Kiev. Oh, what we have done in this case of Ukraine is encourage Ukraine to fight, but not giving them the means to win. Oh, really? What kind of means would those be? Let us continue. Reflecting on Ukraine's chances of success against Russia, he said, my view is they would not win. Could not win. Even with the right resources, he would ask. No. Even with the right resources, they haven't got the manpower, right? Field Marshal's intervention came after Zelensky flew to Washington to meet Donald Trump to try to persuade him to give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles. The war with Russia has now ground on for more than 3 years with incremental gains on each side as the conflict is increasingly played out via drone warfare. Yeah, incremental gains. Where are the gains that Kiev's getting? But Zelensky's plans to pressure Trump appear to have been thwarted by Vladimir Putin, who spoke to the U.S. president hours before his White House meeting with the Ukrainian leader. Now, you will notice that the you will notice first that the neocon outlet is starting to say, they're like putting out military minds, right? Hey, here's a guy who's a highly respected military mind, Field Marshal Lord, whatever the hell, right? And he says, what do you think about Kiev? Yeah, they're pretty much screwed. Well, could they win in India? Nah, they're toast. They're finished. They're done. They're screwed. Now, we've been saying they got they got it made. They couldn't lose to Russia. The Russians are fighting with shovels and washing machines and things like that. And therefore, this is going to be easy. Got it made. Meanwhile, the Russians just kept doing their thing. And even a while back, Donald Trump even said, well, you know what? The Russians just fight and win. They beat Napoleon. They beat Hitler. And these poor bastards are about to get a taste of the same medicine. Trump said that. Of course, he had to reverse course. The Ukrainians will win this easily. They'll be in Red Square planting the Azov flag before you know it. Trump knew the truth. And let's look and see what the latest bit of evidence is. Now, this, I think, is a bit more telling out of the mouth of Donald Trump. Ooh. Moving slow here. Sorry about that, y'all. Give me a little bit of time. All right, there we go. Here we go. Sunday, October 19th. That's today. Trump tells Ukraine, accept Putin's demands or be destroyed. I have a funny feeling this may have been the conversation that Putin had with Trump the other day. Hey, what do you think, Vlad? Yeah, nice talking to you again. It was great hanging out in Alaska. Hey, man, what a great car. I enjoyed riding in the limo. And, how goes all? We're hanging out there. Fair enough. So what do you have to say, Vladimir Putin? You know what? They can give us what we want or we'll knock the hell out of them and they'll be destroyed. Okay, bye. That's it. That was a conversation. Let me continue. Donald Trump demanded that Ukraine submit to Vladimir Putin's peace terms or face destruction in an angry meeting at the White House last week. It has emerged. The U.S. president, who spoke with his Russian counterpart shortly before hosting Vladimir Zelensky, warned that Putin would destroy Ukraine unless a peace deal was in place. Shouting and swearing, woo! Mr. Trump threw aside. Now listen to this. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I think we need to read this. Where are we? Don't look at the little woman in the bikini below. Shouting and swearing, Mr. Trump threw aside Ukrainian maps of the battlefield and pressured Mr. Zelensky to surrender the Donetsk region to Russia. You see what's going on? What happened? Shouting and swearing, you stupid son of a bitch. For God's sake, man, take the deal. No, Podolyak tells me not to take the deal, and I cannot take the deal, for we must defeat the evil Putin. And Trump was like, dude, get ready to get your ass kicked, you dumb fuck. And he, took the paperwork, probably crumbled up the map. Podolyak gave me some maps. Here are the maps. Read these maps. They show that the Russians are losing. Give us more money and Tomahawk missiles. Send us the money. Podolyak tells me you will give us the money. And Trump's like, no. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you some advice. Take the freaking deal. Your ass is grass otherwise, right? No, Putin is demanding the withdrawal of Ukraine's army from the crucial eastern territory as a precondition for peace. However, listen to this. I love this. You're going to love this. However, the surrender of Donetsk is a red line for Ukraine, which has long refused to cede territory, which Russia has failed to capture despite fighting since 2014. Since 2014, they told us it didn't start till 2022. Now that it's convenient, it's 2014. Surrender, a red line for Ukraine. You know what? A red line for Ukraine. Here's the problem with red lines. You must be able to enforce a red line. If you draw a red line, if you say, look, tell you what, I'm not going to go any further than this. You got to be able to enforce it. A bulldozer is coming at you. A D9 caterpillar is coming right towards you, and you take a stick and you draw a line in the sand and say to that guy, the driver of the caterpillar, stop, do not cross the line in the sand. And he gives it full throttle. Blah. You better get the hell out of the way, because you're about to get run over by a D9 caterpillar. Now, you do have a red line. You can paint the line red, but it's going to run red with your blood when that caterpillar mushes you like a bug. So they got a red line in Ukraine. Then the only thing that's going to be left of Ukraine is a red line. Kiev still holds about a quarter of Donetsk province. The land makes up part of the so-called fortress belt, a string of heavily defended towns that blocks Russia from making rapid Western advances towards the capital. Listen to this. You're going to love this. In the White House meeting, Mr. Trump echoed Putin's talking points, despite them contradicting his own recent assessment that Moscow was a paper tiger. European officials briefed on the meeting told the Financial Times, yeah, he said what Putin said. Even though before he said they were a paper tiger, now he's saying they're not a paper tiger. You got to stick with paper tiger. You know, once you say something, even if it's not true, even if you find evidence to prove that it's not true, you're not allowed to go back on it. You got to say, well, sure, they're winning the war. They're beating the hell out of Ukraine. Ukraine's being flattened. But I said they were paper tigers, so let's go with that. That's the way these people think. It's about the narrative. Well, you said this earlier. Yeah, but that's not true. I don't care. You said it. Stay with it. There you go. The U.S. president told Mr. Zelensky he was losing the war and said, if Putin wants, he will destroy you. In recent months, he has swung between Russian and Ukrainian positions, often cooling on sanctions or further military pressure on Moscow after phone calls with Putin. He swung on Russian and Ukrainian positions. If you'll notice, again, this is the West. The only thing they care about is the positions. Well, you're going along with the narrative that Russia has, not the narrative that Ukraine has. How about we go along with the narrative that those missiles have and those drones and that artillery? How about we go around with the narrative of reality? That ain't the way it works in neocon land. They don't do that. Mr. Zelensky held his ground and refused to cut a deal that would leave Ukraine badly exposed. Oh, he's holding his ground. Meanwhile, the soldiers are being mowed down. They're being planted under the ground. But Zelensky's holding his ground. But the Ukrainian president left in a bitter mood, dashed in his hopes that Mr. Trump would authorize deliveries of long-range Tomahawk missiles. On Saturday, Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor and former CEO of BlackRock, said the visit, quote, had not gone as Zelensky hoped. Oh, yeah, Trump swore at him. It said, let's see, and apparently threw papers. Where we got that? Shouting and swearing. There we go. Shouting and swearing, and he threw aside Ukrainian maps. There you go. That sounds like a good thing. Mr. Zelensky told NBC News, I don't know the dialogue between Trump and Putin, adding only that he believed Tomahawk could pressurize Moscow into serious peace negotiations. How? And somebody should ask him when he says that Moscow can only tell me that Tomahawk will make Putin talk with us about ending the war. How? See, nobody will ask him that. Really, how is that? I mean, you've told us that various wonder weapons would do that, and none of them have. What's different about Tomahawks? Why would the Russians suddenly change their mind just because of Tomahawks? Don't just say it. That is an assertion. That's all it is. That is a claim. That is a declaration. If I do A, B will happen. That's fine. How do I know that? He denied that Russia was winning the war, said Putin was after more than just a further tranche of territory. Putin is something similar but more strong than Hamas. It's a more bigger war, and he's the second largest army in the world. Which means I think you would, but he's kind of similar to Hamas, only like Hamas doesn't have tanks or anything really, or an army. And the Russians actually do, including a giant air force, and they're beating the living hell out of you. Again, they're like Hamas, only they're different than Hamas, some kind of way, for God's sake. This is not about territory for Putin. Here we go. Russia's army is in a weak position, with 1.3 million Russian servicemen reportedly killed or wounded. Reported by who? And just 1% 1% of Ukrainian land captured since near the start of the war. So the Russians have lost 1 million and almost 1.5 million people. They've only taken 1% of Ukrainian land. Here's what I would say in that instance. Man, you guys doing pretty good, huh? Yeah, then handle it. Tell you what, here's what you need to do. Trump should say, you know what? You guys are rocking and rolling. You kicking ass and taking names. Here's what you do. You just about got the Russians where you want them right now. I mean, for God's sake, they've lost over 1 million, well over 1 million people, 1% of the land. At this point, it'll take them, what is that, 1% of the country in 3 years? At this point, I mean, come on. It's going to take them 300 years. So you guys just keep doing it. You keep the Russians in their place. Hey, don't worry. The Europeans are going to fund this thing. They got you covered. So give me a call back. Give me a call back. Let me know when you really got them. You don't need tomahawks. For God's sake, you killed 1.3 million. You don't need tomahawks. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Oh, wow. People are still saying they liked me on Omar Chimley says, you were great on you are an excellent host. You were fantastic on well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for all of the good and kind words about my appearance on Moats. I really did enjoy it. He says, and I really don't understand why the leader of the country, which has the biggest territory in the world, needs some more kilometers. Yeah, that's pretty good evaluation there, buddy. The one thing Russia doesn't need is more territory, but they ain't going to let a bunch of Nazis sit on your territory and throw stuff at them and cause them problems and bring NATO in next door. So they don't need more. Well, exactly. You're right. Finally, you woke up to the truth. They don't need more territory, but they're going to take it if they have to. Mr. Trump is set to meet Putin in Budapest within the next fortnight in an attempt to make progress on a deal. A European diplomat told the Washington Post that Ukraine would never accept such a deal. It's like selling them their own leg in exchange for nothing. That's fine. They don't have to take the deal. Trump was cool though. Trump, to be honest, and I'm not a fan of Trump. You know, I'm not a fan of warmongering and neocon, but Trump was pretty straightforward. Take the deal, or they're gonna kick your ass, man. Take the deal, or they're gonna put multiple feet in your rectum. You better take the deal. Podolak tell me I don't have to take the deal. I'm not taking the deal. And you know, Trump, you better take the deal. He probably looked at what's his name, JD Vance. JD Vance, they're not taking a deal, and I don't like it. I don't like it. That's what Trump likes to say. They're not taking a deal. JD Vance said, I don't like it. Podolak. Oh, Podolak. A European diplomat. There we go. So Europe is saying, keep it up. Mr. Zelensky said he told Trump that he was ready and willing to attend the Budapest summit, but cast out on whether Putin was seriously prepared to make peace. So here's my point. My point is this. Based on what was said in the Telegraph, what the Telegraph put out there, it is pretty clear to me that there are elements in England that are ready to accept reality. There are elements in England that are saying, dude, this is a catastrophic loss. At least, and there's probably factions, just like here, there's probably factions that are fighting it out. And so there's factions of the ruling elite in Britain that are saying, man, we better take our medicine here because Ukraine can't win. This is a defeat. How can we get out of this thing? Is there any way to get out of this thing without pure and absolute humiliation and degradation? Well, I'll answer that no. Is there any way that we can lose without taking an L? I'll answer that too. No, there's not. But we're going to lose. So we'd be far better to lose and accept the loss and make a deal and say, look what we did, than just have Ukraine collapse, have a bunch of damn refugees running out across the Ukrainian border into Poland and every damn where else, giving us hell in the middle of the wintertime when we can't even afford to keep our own people warm, because that's what's coming. Because what the Russians are obviously doing is they're going to play the general winter. It is clear at this point that the Russians are saying, this winter, it's going to be different for you. We are going to close down the cities. We're going to shut down your heat. We're going to shut down your electricity. We're going to shut down your internet. This winter is going to be a war winter. You're not going to be running around at the nightclubs in Kiev and Lvov having a ball, dancing and shaking with the girlies this winter. No, You're not going to be doing that. This winter, you're going to be cold. You're going to be feeling the heat. And by heat, I mean cold. So that there we have it. We have a bunch of the EU clowns who have done everything they could to try to throw the Ukrainians, under the bus, to throw them in a cage with a bear and get them mauled, and to talk a lot of trash. They're running out of money. They're running out of time. They're running out of rhetoric. It looks to me like there are the beginnings of an understanding, the beginnings of an acceptance. Maybe that's a better word. There are the beginnings of the acceptance that they're going to lose. At this point, they're edging up to the point to get themselves nuked. At this point, they're edging up to the point to do like some kind of we've got to attack Russia. I mean, their rhetoric is red hot. Their rhetoric is, we got to attack Russia. We got to go to war with Russia. We got to destroy Russia. We got to do everything we can to fire every missile we got, do everything in Russia, which of course means they'll all die. And they're getting close to that. And perhaps they're understanding more so than anything else, the U.S. ain't going to go down with them. Perhaps they should have watched my video like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And you can look around, go back and look and find the video that I called the Samsonite option. And I said back then, a year and a half ago, ultimately the US will exercise the Samsonite option. That at some point, the US, when it has proxies, and when its proxy gets beat to hell, torn to shreds, when its proxy loses the war, as inevitably US proxies always lose the war, when it loses the war, the US is going to walk out and leave them hanging. That's what we do every time. We're going to leave you, to your fate. And that is what's coming for Ukraine, and that's what's coming for the EU. The EU, both, in fact, to be quite frank, both wars are lost, and they're catastrophic losses. I mean, look at the what we have. We've got two countries where the U.S. have cultivated very carefully over the course of decades and decades, cultivated a culture of fascism, of ethnocentrism, ethnic fascism, right? There's various kinds of fascism based on things, but both of these countries with the Banderites, how weird is this? They actually convinced the Banderites, which wasn't hard, that they are the real Aryans. Now, they're Slavs, but okay, they're the real Aryans, and they're the real Nazis. They're the real Northern Europeans, and the Russians are Slavs below them. Therefore, they should kill them all. The Russians are not worth living, surviving. They just need to wipe them off and perhaps take all of their natural resources and hand them over to US and the UK and the Western Europe, because that's a good idea. And meanwhile, in Israel, right, you have the same thing. You have an ethnic group, the Zionists, who consider themselves, I don't know what they consider themselves, a religious group, an ethnic group, whatever they consider themselves, because so many of them are actual atheists, but they believe that this other group that lives amongst them, like the Russian speakers in Ukraine or the Palestinians and Arabs, are a lower form of life that should just be wiped out and annihilated. They're in the way. They hate them, and they feel that they should be destroyed. The exact same thing now. Both of them ultimately operate as a cat's paw for the US and UK imperialists, neocons, warmongers, globalists, whatever word works for you. And both of them feel that ultimately the United States should come and bail them out. Now, I would say this: Israel is the wife and Ukraine is the mistress. And Ukraine knows and accepts that. That's all they are. They're just puppet proxy states to be used for war, to be ground up. I mean, for God's sake, look at Israel. Israel's, I mean, who'd want to live there now? It's nothing but a fascist war state. When they were getting pummeled by missiles by Iran, the Israeli government said to the Israelis who were trying to get out of the country, you can't leave. Nobody can leave now. Why? Because they really probably wanted more casualties so they could justify more. Well, oh my God, look at all of these Israelis that have been killed. Well, they wouldn't have been if you'd have let them leave the country, but you wouldn't. So therefore, we now have these sister states, the Frankenstein sister states of Ukraine and Israel. Both of them, might I also add that both of these are basically how do I want to put this? Both of these states are being burned up at a very rapid pace that's unsustainable. And when they're finished being used up, they'll be really useless to anybody. Most of all the people there. I mean, when Ukraine is done, from the looks of things, it'll just be a little rump state. It'll be nothing but, if anything is left of it, it'll be nothing but, some farms and field areas and things of that nature. They won't have ports. They won't have mines. They won't have anything. They'll be able to grow stuff, but they won't even be able to take them to market via ports. They'll have to ship the stuff into the EU. And might I add, the farmers in Poland aren't happy about that. The EU farmers are not happy about an impoverished state that can sell its farm goods really, really cheap to the rest of Europe, a lot of them to the rest of Europe, and drive down the prices of various farm goods, of various, fruits and vegetables in Europe. And that would be detrimental to the farmers in Europe. So ultimately, and might I add, there'll be Ukrainian refugees running all over the place begging for money and resources, when the fact is that the the Europeans can't even take care of their own. And now what we're getting is displaced Israelis all over creation. And the fact of the matter, it's a pariah state. So if you're an Israeli and you go into a restaurant in the US or most other places, you better not say I'm an Israeli. You better show your alternate passport. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from New Jersey. Because if you say I'm from Israel, you're liable to get punched in the face. Maybe it ain't the best thing. Maybe it is. I don't know, but that's reality. So you've got these two Frankenstein twins that are burned out. They're being used up. They're being burned out, and there will soon be nothing left of either of them. Not much left. Now, people are I've been saying this for a while. A lot of pundits argue that Israel and the U.S. is going to attack Iran. They may. I just don't see how they can do it. They may. Iran is steeled, buddy. Iran is ready for a fight. They don't want to fight, but they're ready for a fight. And might I add, they plastered Israel in 12 days before the last time. So do they want a war with Iran? Yes. Can they do it? If they start a war with Iran, and Iran is not a patsy, they're not a pushover, they're not easy. They start a war with Iran, they're likely to get really hurt this time around. So we'll see. It makes sense that they would want the war. What doesn't make sense is that they could actually do it. And might I add, the Israeli military is in deep and serious trouble, and they're hated. One of the things that they did today was apparently a bulldozer driver, Israeli bulldozer driver, settler driver, one of those ran over a bomb and blew up his bulldozer. And then the Israelis lied and said, "Oh, we were attacked by Hamas. We got to start bombing again." They started bombing it again, and apparently the Americans contacted them and said, "Dude, we know what happened." And they said, "Oh crap!" And we thought we were going to get to kill some more innocent civilians. What a bloodthirsty bunch of freaking savages they are. Bloodthirsty savages. That's the only thing I can say about Israel, the Israelis and the U.S. neocons that support them. What a pathetic group of human beings. I have no respect for the Israelis or for the Zionist supporters. And the Zionist Christians, I don't understand. I don't understand Americans. I don't understand these supporters of Israel. They're the chosen people. What does that make you? The unchosen people? Hey, we got to support God's chosen people. Are you God? What are God's chosen people? No, I'm just a low life scum. Those are the big guys over there. They're God chosen. What the hell? How brainwashed do you have to have people for them to? I mean, it's one thing. Actually, I got more respect for the Banderites, because the Banderites, these Nazi lunatics, at least they think that we're championing the white race and we're going to stand up for the world and lead the white race into power everywhere. Yeah, it may be nutty, but at least they think they're the powerful people. Americans literally have been convinced that somebody else is God's chosen people, and they're just a bunch of schmoes. How brainwashed you have to be. So tell me, Garland, do you think you're the chosen people? Oh, no, not us, man. We're second fiddle. We're sucking hind tit to the Israelis, bit, buddy. They're God's chosen people, and we ain't. What kind of brainwashed sap believes that? The kind of brainwashed sap that run around America, I guess, and Europe and things of that nature. I don't know. Let's see. And somebody said so they can be saved by God. Oh, but let's not forget. Let's not forget that what has to happen, according to the Christian Zionists, is that Israel has to commit this genocide. then they'll be like the rapture or something, and the Israelis, then they'll be genocided by God. And then the Prince of Peace returns. All of that so we can bring back Jesus, the Prince of Peace. There are some extremely confusing contradictions in all of this logic, because it all comes down to people who want war. And they want to control everything, and they want to steal everything that's not nailed down, and they're cooking up a bunch of lies to do it. And those lies are not working real well, because those lies faced up against Iranian missiles, and those lies were bombed to hell in 12 days. All right, let's see what we got here. Anything? Do we have any super chat? Well, let's start at the top and see if we got any super chats. If we have any super chats, we shall answer. And we got Spoken Word says, love your intel, Garland. Always enjoy listening to your perspectives. Thank you, thank you, thank you, my dear friend. Anything else? I think that it. I think that's it. Let me look and see. How about we see if we have. I don't see any Rumble rants. So I think that's that. Thanks a lot, everyone. And thank you, everyone who checked me out today on the Mother of All Talk shows. Let me add this. You know, one of the things that's going on now, Netanyahu said that there was an eighth front, and that eighth front was that he was fighting. There were 7 wars, and there was an eighth front, and the eighth front basically is us, the people of the West, particularly the United States, right? Well, I can see the obvious censorship, particularly on Twitter, because normally one of the things that happens is, as you know, I don't necessarily have access to Twitter, but lots of friends do, and they'll show me stuff, and allow me to sign in every now and then and browse at least. But normally, when I'm on, if I do moats, and I go on, and immediately after, and I search Garland, Nixon, Moats, Garland, Nixon, Galloway, something like that. I search it. All kinds of stuff will show up. I mean, hundreds of thousands. Do it now. There ain't nothing there. It's like nothing. If I'm going to do it right now, let's do X. Okay, so I'm going to search Garland, Nixon, and I'm going to search Moats. And let me see the latest. There's nothing. Now, what they do show, what's interesting is what they do show is negative things about Moats. So what I'm supposed to believe, if I search on Twitter, that the last comment from Garland, Nixon, and Moats, right? The last comment, the last thing that someone tweeted about Garland, Nixon, and Moats was 6 hours ago. That was it. And it was negative. Some guy said, speaking the truth will get you banned from George Galloway's Spook Fest. Watching Moats is like watching the MI6 interview the CIA. We have retired cop leftist poser Garland Nixon hosting the show today. He's a cop, not so secret, right? So if you go to Twitter and search Garland, Nixon, Moats, the last thing that shows up was 6 hours ago. Now, every other time I've done Moats, been on Moats, not even if I didn't host it, if I was just on it. If you go search Twitter, hundreds of things. You can go on and on and on. Garland Nixon, people, I like Garland Nixon on Moats. I didn't like Garland Nixon on Moats. Garland Nixon, Moats, Garland Nixon, everywhere. But for some reason today on Twitter, that has been completely the algorithms of Twitter. This bull crap about Twitter being free speech. This is bull crap. Twitter is completely now. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's TikTok. That's all it is. Forget any thoughts that Twitter is some kind of a free speech platform. No, it's not. The algorithms, why? Because the Galloway and Moats is critical of Israel. And anything that's critical, go on there and search. There's 6 hours. That's the last. I'm supposed to believe that nothing This is the latest. Now look at this. The latest. One is 6 hours, one is 6 hours, one is 6 hours. And the next one's August 4th, June 16th. So Garland, Nixon, and Moats, the last time, other than these 3 tweets, there hasn't been anything since August 4th. And before that, June 16th. They're just not there. Nobody. So no one has tweeted anything about Garland, Nixon, and Moats today. In other words, the algorithm has shut down Moats. You know, I went to Galloway and Moats' Twitter account, right? And I looked up today's show and it had like 6 or 7 comments. There's millions of people, at least hundreds of thousands a day. How do they only get 6 comments? So basically what has happened is the Twitter that Matt Taibbi and other people reported on, Schellenberger reported on, that Twitter, when the intelligence agencies were just cutting everything else, anything that you said about Ukraine, anything that you said about the jab, anything that you said about COVID, that all of that stuff was cut out. That Twitter is back in spades, but it's back for Israel. But guess what, you all? That ain't going to stop us, is it? That ain't going to stop us. They ain't going to stop us. Thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate it. Somebody says, but Mario gets 14,000 views. Exactly. You know, that exactly. 14,000 views. You search anything else, there's thousands of views. You search a show, the most popular show, YouTube show and podcast show and all of that kind of stuff, the most popular alternative media show. Anybody, nobody's sick. The last thing that happened today, according to this, Garland, Nixon, Moats, there's been 1, 2, 3 tweets today. That's it. And one of them was in opposition to Garland, Nixon. And the other 2 were just, it doesn't even show Galloway's people's tweets about me. Nobody's tweets about me are there. June 16th. Isn't that something? June 15th. So there you go. Maybe I should ask Rock, why is Garland Nixon's why are there no tweets about Garland Nixon's show on Moats today? In fact, probably Moats is just algorithmed out. If you look up George Galloway or Moats, that stuff's algorithm. It's over. The Zionists have taken full control of Twitter. Forget it. Twitter's not nothing anymore. It's it is what it is. Thanks a lot, everybody. I will ask you, if you get a chance, patreon.com, PayPal, buy me a coffee, Cash App, something like that. If you have the opportunity, it would be great if you could support the channel. I've got my P.O. box there. It's P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, Maryland. You can see that. You can, if you want to snail mail something, whether it is a letter or a card or a donation or whatever you want, just snail mail me. I certainly appreciate that. And if you just want to say hi, that's fine too. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a wonderful day. The most important thing you can do, particularly in the context of this algorithmic censorship, the most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks a lot, you all. I'm out.